Welcome to Into RC. Here are 10 tips to build a better rock crawler. Tip number 1, when building your kit, don't throw away each bag as you get through each step. Instead, keep stuffing the bags inside the largest bag. This will prevent you from throwing away something accidentally. Then when you're all done and you have no missing parts, you could throw away the scraps. Tip number 2, invest in a quality pair of flush cutters. These are from Hobby Essentials and they're called sprue cutters, and these allow you to make precise cuts when removing parts from a parts tree. Instead of having a little plastic nub left over, this allows you to cut up right next to the part. Tip number 3 is to mark your radio. It's easy to get a big collection of radios, and to keep them from getting mixed up, when you get a new model that comes with a radio, mark it so it's easy to identify. It's great to have a programmable computerized radio where you can put multiple models on it. The problem is then you can only use one at a time. If you're rock crawling with someone else and they want to use one, this allows you to have a second transmitter. But if you have too many transmitters, it's easy to get them mixed up. That's why I suggest marking it with a Sharpie. This is easy to remove if you need to with some rubbing alcohol. It doesn't really stand out, the black on black, but it allows you to see it and identify the radio and which model it goes to when you need to. Tip number 4 is like tip number 3, except it's for batteries. Instead of labeling it so you know what model it goes to, since most batteries get used with more than one model, I like to label the side with the date I purchased it on. This allows me to keep organized how old my batteries are and which ones are getting older. Tip number 5 is about the drivetrain, and specifically about drive pins. Nothing is more frustrating than when you're working on your car either at your bench or in the field and you remove a wheel and then the hex and the little pin falls out. To prevent that from happening, I use a tiny dab of silicone type glue and put just a bit on the tip of the pin before inserting it. Then I install the hex over it. It'll dry and it'll still be removable, but it won't fall out when you don't want it to. Tip number 6 is all about being organized. When you're done building a kit, you'll probably have some extra parts left over. Put these in a Ziploc bag and label it. This will make it much easier to find these parts in the future if you ever need them. Tip number 7 is another drivetrain tip, and it's really a two-part tip. The first part is about using grease, and specifically how much grease. Most people over-apply. The key here is actually less is more. You want to make sure there's a light coating evenly across the tooth face and that each tooth has a little bit of grease on it, but it is a light, even coating. You could use a paintbrush to make sure you have a good application, but again, the key is less is more. The second part of this tip is make sure you use the right grease. I use either the axial kit grease or Losi high pressure grease. These black greases are perfect for RC drivetrains. What you don't want to use is the stuff for full-size applications that people use on wheel bearings or marine use. It sounds great that it's waterproof. The problem is the stuff is too sticky and it actually causes more drag, which will decrease battery life and cause more heat in your components. I'm going to upset a lot of people, but the very popular Lucas Red and Tacky is not ideal for RC use. It is simply, again, too tacky and it causes more drag than needed. Also, when you fully pack in your portal boxes or axles, that grease just gets moved to the outside and does nothing to actually waterproof your drivetrain. Use the right grease, use just enough to get the job done. Tip number 8 is to protect your wiring. I use plastic electrical wire loom. You can get it at almost any hardware store. Anywhere the wires might interact or come in contact with hot parts like a motor or any moving parts like drive shafts or anything like that. You always want to keep your wiring clear of any moving stuff, and you should keep it away from the hotter components, but when you can't, protect those wires with a high temp wire loom protector. Tip number 9 is about tires. All tires should be vented. Even if the wheels are vented, you should vent the tires. The easiest way to do this is to use a leather punch This is an inexpensive one I got at a hardware store. Comes in different gauge punches. I use one of the smaller ones, by the second from the smallest. This gives you perfect holes that won't tear, and it makes it easy to put 2 or 3 holes in each tire. Tip number 10 is another drivetrain tip, and this one has to do with drive shafts. If you want to avoid having unnecessary vibrations in your drive shaft, a key step is to phase or align the drive shaft. So you'll notice I have these U-joints built so they're in perfect alignment. To make it easier to install and have everything stay in line, where I sometimes can't see one of the ends, I take a silver Sharpie paint marker and I mark a line straight down the different parts of the drive shaft. Thanks for watching Into RC. Please like, comment, and share.